everyone, I'm Rihanna from A Frugal Life, and this is going to be a little bit of a different video. Today I'm going to be doing my first story time, and this story time is going to be about a Rover.com nightmare and the nightmare client I had named Sam. So hopefully this story is interesting to you and gives you a little bit of an idea of what not to do and how to be safe when pet sitting. I made a bunch of mistakes here and I will call them out to you when I'm telling you the story. So first thing, let me tell you a little bit about how Rover.com works. So you sign up with them and they get you clients for pet sitting. I've actually called them out in multiple videos. I think I may have even done an entire video on doing Rover.com pet sitting. I've been sitting with them for years. I had dozens of 5-star reviews before this. I never had a single problem with a client before this, and this client ruined my entire pet sitting business. So he left such a horrible, untrue review about me on Rover.com. Rover refused to remove it, even though he was nightmare, very dangerous guy, and they refused to even look into it. So I ended up just canceling my Rover.com account because the review was so bad, and I'll just do pet sitting for my current clients and the clients that I know, because this one really freaked me out. So first, how Rover.com works. You put up a profile on Rover. You put up your previous pet sitting experience, pictures of dogs you sat, pictures of your own dogs, a little profile about yourself. You get a background check. I did all of that. I did dozens of pet sitting for cats, for dogs. I did repeat pet sitting. Everything was great until this guy came along a few weeks ago. So his name was Sam. On the pet sitting site, he had a completely different name. He had an alias, which is weird because most people on the pet sitting site, it's not like Facebook or something like that. You put your real name. I didn't think anything of it. I just thought he had a screen name. And then he asked me to pet sit his 3 cats 3 days a week. It was a repeat visit. It was going to be a repeat visit. And my charge was going to be $27. That's how much I charge for 3 cats. The way the pet sitting works for cats is typically it's a half an hour. Cats don't really come out and play. Sometimes they don't even come out at all. So dog visits that I do are an hour. Cat visits I do are 30 minutes. I go in. I try to find the cats if I can, take pictures of them, try to pet them. I feed them, I water them. Sometimes I scoop their litter box if the owner asks me to. That's it. That's all you're supposed to do. Then you come out, you put on the app that you did it, you put the pictures of the cats, the time, you check in, and the Rover app sends a check-in to the person. A big thing about the Rover app, which is important for this story, is that they call out that you are never supposed to exchange real phone numbers. You communicate through the app. You communicate through chat through the app. There's a phone number on Rover. You can call people. That way it's safer for you. You're not exchanging your real phone number. That's a good point for later on in the story. So he puts on there that he wants pet sitting. I answer him back on Rover and say, yes, great. Let's set up a meeting to meet the cats. He says, I want to talk to you on the phone first. Give me your cell phone number. So I'm a little bit worried at this point, but I've pet sit for so many people. I just thought, well, he doesn't know how Rover works. So I said, we're not supposed to exchange phone numbers, and even got a flag on Rover because Rover flags you when you ask for somebody's number that said, don't give this guy your number, don't exchange numbers or whatever. It's more business professional than that. But we got a flag that says, don't do that. So I said, you can call me on the Rover number. So I called him on the Rover number. He called me, I forget which one. And he grilled me on the phone about my pet sitting experience, but he did sound really nice. So it seemed like it was going to be okay. He said that it was going to be really easy. It's just 3 cats. He works out of town. He's really mysterious at this point. He doesn't say where he works at, but he says he works out of town 4 days a week. He is in town. Actually, it's only going to be 1 day a week. He's out of town 4 days a week. He's in town 3 days a week or something like that. And during the middle, he wants me to come and feed the cats. So they'll be alone for a couple days. Cats, it's usually okay. You make sure they have a lot of food and water. You make sure they have a lot of litter, and they're fine. So I thought, this is cool. It's going to be fine. So I said, okay, let's set up a meeting so that you can show me everything you want me to do in the house. Always set up a meeting beforehand when you're doing pet sitting, especially with dogs because you want to meet the dogs and make sure they're safe, but also with cats just so that they can show you how to get into the house and how to check on the animals or how they want you to check on the animals. So we set up a meeting. It was very specific about the time that I had to come by. I said I couldn't come by at that time. I have a day job, so he knew at that point that I had a day job, which is normal. Most people who pet sit also have a full-time job. He was very specific. He wanted me to come at like 1:15 or something like that. So I said, okay. And I went to meet him. So this is a very important point. I did do this right. So I would never go to a new pet sitting place without a chaperone. So always bring a friend, your spouse, another adult of some sort with you to wait in the car, or even to go in with you. But I usually have my husband wait in the car just to make sure everything's safe, because you're going to a complete stranger's house. So I'm glad I did bring my husband this time. And he seemed a little bit weary about the fact that I brought my husband, but we'll get into that later. So we pull up, my husband stays in the truck. We have our dog in the truck, because we were going someplace else. So I just told him, hey, I got out. He immediately came like running out the door to greet me, which is a little bit unusual. Usually I go to the door, and he said hi and everything. He seemed okay. He was really nice. Just kind of like a computer programmer type guy. He went up and insisted on greeting my husband and shaking his hand. I thought, okay, he's old school. That's fine. And then he talked to him a little bit about his truck, because this guy also had a lot of cars. So they were kind of bonding over the cars, and I thought this is going good. So we went in the house. Typically, this is how it goes when you first meet somebody for a rover, when you're just checking it. So if it's dogs, usually you go up to the door, they bring the dog out to you to greet them, and then you go inside, make sure the dog is safe with you, you pet the dog, you play with the dog a little while you're talking to the owner. They show you where the dog food is, they show you where the cat food, or cat food if it's a cat, is, and you go home, and then you come back later and do the pet sitting. So this is cats. So how cats goes is you usually go in, it usually takes 5 minutes. You meet the owner, they say hi, there's some pleasantries. They show you how to get into the house. Usually they leave a key, give you a key, there's a lock code, something like that. They show you the cats, or where the cats typically hang out if the cats won't come out. They show you where the food is, where to put it. They show you where the litter box is if they want you to scoop it, and they show you where the water is. That's it. Typically takes 5 minutes. I was actually in this guy's house for an hour. I was in there so long, my husband was getting worried and texted me to make sure I was okay. If I hadn't answered, he would have come in or called the police. So I was in there a long time because this guy showed me every room in his house. All I was doing was supposed to feed 3 cats. He showed me every room, every door, every window. He told me his background life story of himself, his family, his sister. He talked about how he had a very important job where he it was a very secretive, important government military type job that he did computer programming. He told me that there was cameras in the house. He walked me around and showed me every camera. He said, you can go in this room, there's a camera. You can go in this room, there's a camera. Feel free to go. He said, if you go in this room, there's no camera. This is the bedroom and the master bathroom. This is where it got really weird. So he's like, so if you take a shower in here or something like that, there's no camera, don't worry. Why would I be taking a shower at this guy's house who is pet sitting? So now I'm really concerned. And he's telling me that I can go in his bedroom and there'll be no cameras. So that's really weird. But I thought, okay, my husband's in the car, it's okay. And then he's walking, I'm getting nervous at this point. I'm thinking this is not worth $27. He's a little weird and it's not worth the cat sitting job. But he continues to walk me around, and I'm the kind of person that can't like just say something rude and run away. So I'm just being polite and thinking I'll get out to the car and then I'll say no. So he's like, okay. So he's like, this is where their food is. He shows me 3 different places their food is. He tells me specifically, this is fine, but I'm just pointing out that he tells me specifically to take the dry food and put it in their dry food container. It's the kind that filters down in 3 different spots in his house. He tells me, here's the wet food. He says, give them 2 wet foods in this location. And then he says, all of the bowls in the house, you need to take to the kitchen sink and scrub out really good. He says, the cats don't like it if their bowls are dirty. To me, at this point, it seems even weirder because cats don't care if their bowls are dirty. That's fine. He wants clean bowls for the cats. But also, I'm only there. He's gone one day, I'm there. He's gone another day, and then he's back. So it's only 3 days. Typically, you would not have to scrub out the bowls, but I'm like, that's fine. I can still do all of this my half an hour, and if it takes a little bit longer, that's fine. So he shows me where the bowl is. And then he makes me sit down on the couch with him, like really close. It's really weird. And tries to call the cats out. The cats come to me because I'm pretty good with animals, obviously. And I'm petting the cats, and he's so excited that I love the cats and that the cats love me. And he says they never talk to anybody else. And then he starts telling me more of his life story. And at this point, I'm like, I need to go. My husband's waiting for me. This sounds great. It'll be fine. Even though I'm a little leery about it. And then he takes me to the kitchen. And he said, So how much are we gonna do for this pet sitting gig? How much do you want for this? Well, this is weird because Rover tells you exactly how much he's gonna pay. I'm like, well, on Rover, it quoted $27 because I tell Rover how much I charge for each cat. And he said, okay, is that how much you want? I'm like, that's how much Rover quoted, $27 is fine. And he's like, well, I was thinking a little more. I'm like, okay. He's like, I'm thinking $50. I'm like, okay. He's like, because I have these other things I need for you to do. I'm like, okay. And then he walks me out to the back and he shows me all of these plants in the back. It's really not that much. He has some fake grass and a little pagoda with some potted plants. He wants me to water the potted plants and the 2 trees in the back. And I'm like, okay, that'll only take about 5 minutes. That's fine. He said, don't worry, I'm going to pay you extra for it. I'm like, okay. I'm like, we'll have to requote that on Rover or whatever. And he's like, well, how about I just pay you cash for that part? And I'm like, okay. I'm like, Rover doesn't really want you to do that, but okay. And then he never shows me the front of the house. This is important. So he never shows me the front of the house. So I don't realize there's a bunch of plants in the front of the house. And he never tells me that I need to do that. He only tells me I need to feed the cats, water the cats, and scoop the litter boxes. He does show me 3 different litter boxes while he's showing me the camera and saying I need all 3 of these scooped. And you can there's plastic bags here. He shows me the scoop. He says there's plastic bags here. You can scoop it and put it in that brown trash can. I'm like, okay, I can do that. I have cats at home. I do cat sitting all the time. And then he takes me to the back and explains a long explanation about how the 3 properties in the back, the 3 apartments in the back are Airbnbs, and there's a lockbox there, so he'll leave the key to his house in the lockbox. So in the back, he shows me one of the Airbnb lockboxes. He shows me how to open it. He opens it and there's a key in there. He's like, the key will be in here, and he shuts it. I'm like, okay. And then he said, that's all. Are we good with that? I'm like, okay, yeah, I can do that, because at this point he's going to pay me $50 for what I think is half an hour. So I'm like, okay, I'll do it because we need the money. I didn't say that to him, but we need the money. So I took off. I told my husband about it. We're both a little wary about it, but we really need this money, and it's going to be $50 a week. This is going to pay a whole bill. It's important. We're going to try to make it work. And my husband always goes with me anyways and waits in the car, and he won't be there, obviously, when the cats are there. So before I leave, he tells me that in order to get the PIN code, he changes the PIN code every time I'm there. In order to get the PIN code, I need to call him when I get there. He says he's in a locked facility, that he has to lock his phone outside of the facility in a locker. So I have to call him at an exact time when I get there to get the PIN code, and then he will watch me through the cameras while I'm on there. I didn't really realize he said that, but he said he was watching me through the cameras while I'm on there, which is fine. It's his house if he wants to do that, but it's a little bit weird. And then we leave. So there's 3 days in between the time that I'm supposed to do this cat sitting job and the time that I went and visited. So he calls me. First of all, there's never any communication on a cat sitting or pet sitting job between the time that you visit them and you go to do the pet sitting job, unless there's something wrong. Usually the people just message when they leave and they say, okay, I'm leaving, please let me know when you get there via Rover. He calls me numerous times through Rover, chats me numerous times through Rover, and insists I pick up the phone to confirm again that I'm doing the cat sitting job, and to go over it again, over and over again. He does this. I'm like, okay, maybe he's just really worried about his cats. He does seem to love his cats. On the day of the cat sitting job, I tell my husband, I'm really wary about this. This guy is super weird. I'm not happy about this, but we're gonna do it because we need the money. So we drove over to this is the day of the pet sitting job. We drove over the pet sitting job. I call him when I get there. He doesn't pick up. So I called him. I was there 10 minutes early because I'm always early for every job I go to, which is usually a good thing. People are really happy about it. So I'm there 10 minutes early. I call him. He doesn't pick up. Then 5 minutes later, I message him and say, I'm here. Whenever you can, please pick up and give me the PIN number. And then he finally calls me back. And he said, I thought you were going to be here at this time. And I said, I'm sorry, I was just early. And so he says, I'll stay with you on the phone to make sure you get into the house. So now I'm walking through the rocky driveway on the phone, trying to get to his house. I get to the back, and I realize from what he's saying that he's watching me on all these cameras. He has at least a dozen cameras outside and probably like 20 cameras inside, watching every angle of his house. So we get to the back, and I put the PIN code in, and I get the key, and I said, okay, I have the key now. And he said, okay, I'll wait until you get into the house. I'm like, okay. So I go to the door, one of the doors, and he said, not that door. I'm like, okay. And I walk around to the other door and I open the door. I'm in the house. I shut the door. I turn on the light because I had to go into the laundry room. This is important for later because he gets mad about it. And then I go in the house and he's like, okay, I'm going to stay on the phone while you get your cash. I'm like, okay. First of all, this is making me really nervous, but I'm doing it. So he walks me through the kitchen, turn left, turn right. No, open this. He doesn't just tell me there's a drawer next to the refrigerator. He's like walking me every step through the kitchen while he's watching me on the cameras from work, wherever he is. And I open a drawer and finally find the $25 that's the extra money for the watering or whatever. He's like, okay. He's like, I'll let you go do the job. Let me know when you're done. I'm like, okay, I will. Because that's what I do. At the end of a job, I tell them on Rover app, I'm done. And I check out on Rover. So I go through the house. I give them their dry food. I give them their wet food. I scrub every bowl. And I put them back where they are and fill them with water. And then I go through and scoop every bit of dirty part of the cat litter boxes and put them in the brown bag. And then I go out to the back and I water all the things. And then I go out back into the house and turn off all the lights, lock the door. I shook the door to make sure it's locked. And then I walked back, put the key in the lockbox, and went back to my car, told my husband it was done, checked in on via Rover, sent him the pictures of the cats I took, and left. So I had to immediately go from that job to a paint party job. So I run a paint party business. So that should have been it. I was actually there for 45 minutes at his place. I should have only had to be there for half an hour. I did everything he told me to. I went directly to that paint party, and I'm leading a paint party of 25 Girl Scouts. And he's messaging me over and over on Rover. You did it wrong. Did you scoop the cat boxes? I didn't, or did you dump them? I didn't see you dump them. So obviously he was watching me the whole time. And I said, and I'm not answering because I'm teaching a paint party. And he's just messaging me over and over, bing, bing, bing. He's like, I didn't see you water the front part of the house. I didn't see you scoop the cat boxes, or I didn't see you dump the cat boxes. Please go back immediately and do that. So I have a little break. The Girl Scouts are painting. And I sent him a message and say, hey, Sam, I can't answer immediately when you text me after a job because I have another job. I said, I just scooped the cat boxes. That's what you told me to do. And I didn't water the front. I didn't see a hose there. I had walked by and saw plants, but I didn't see a hose there. And he didn't tell me to water the front. So then he immediately sends me a message back while I'm at my job, a scathing, long 3-page text message saying that he's so sorry, he's bothered me. I'm the most important, he knows I'm the most important person on earth. This is like obvious sarcastic. And he's just a little engineer saving the world. And how dare he interrupt my life and all this stuff. It's like a crazy long message just going off on me because obviously I did something wrong at his house he didn't like. I won't read the message here because it's long and just it gets crazier and crazier, like this manifesto of things. And at the end he says, you're fired, don't bother calling me, and I'm blocking you. And he blocks me on everything, so I can't even respond to the message. So I'm really upset, and I'm like having a bit of a panic attack at this paint party. Because he sent me this really terrible, nasty message, and obviously he doesn't know where I live or anything like that, so it's okay. But I'm not used to people saying bad things about me. And I'm a really good pet sitter. I have 5-star reviews everywhere. I did everything he told me to do. I just couldn't have him messaging me over and over again when I was at another job. And apparently that was unacceptable for him. He wanted me to completely be there. Part of the message he sent was that if I'm going to pet sit for him, he can call me anytime, day or night. He said this in his message, and I need to answer immediately because if he's calling me, then it's obviously important. Well, I don't know how this is relevant to a 30-minute pet sitting job. He doesn't need to call me the next day at 9 p.m., but apparently it was. So after that, he's obviously blocked me on everything. He did not cancel the pet sitting job. He let the money go through. It's a week later, and Rover says, how are things going? So I sent a message to Rover privately and said, this was a really bad pet sitting job. I'm not going to put a bad review. But this guy was really scary, seemed dangerous, sent me some terrible messages and everything like that. I'm just letting you know. So Rover sent us something back and said, we don't see any messages on here. Well, that's because he had demanded when I was at his house to get my actual cell phone number if I was going to do the job, and said we needed to communicate via our personal cell phone numbers, not Rover. Another red flag I did not see. So Rover didn't have any proof of anything because it wasn't on Rover. I had communicated with him outside of Rover, which I should not have done. And I'm thinking this is okay. I'm not going to leave a bad message for him because I'm scared of him. I'm not going to leave a bad review of him because I'm scared of him. We live in a very small town, and I'm very prominent in the town on Facebook because I do paint parties. So he could find me if he wanted to. So I did not leave anything on Rover except for that message I sent him. Well, 2 weeks later, they must have sent him the same thing that said, how did your pet sitting job go? And he wrote me a scathing review full of untrue things. He said that I rushed into his house, left all the lights on in the house. Well, we know I turned them off. He said I left the door unlocked, which I had shook the door. He could see that on the cameras to make sure it was locked. He said I left a mess all over his kitchen sink. All I had done was rinse out and scrub bowls. By the time he had gotten home the next day or the day after, the water should have dried if it was left in the sink. So he couldn't see any message, anything in his sink. He said he told me to dump all the cat litter boxes. This is all in the review. And he said all I did was scoop them. He said I refused to go back and dump them like he said. He said I didn't do any of the watering that I promised, which I did. He only told me to water the backyard, not the front yard. I don't know what I was thinking, but I was trying to get out of there fast. I should have watered the front yard and found a hose, even though he didn't tell me to do it, but I was trying to get out of there fast because I was worried about being there and I had another job. So I only did exactly what he told me to do. He said that I took the money out of his kitchen and ran with it. Well, we know that he had walked me through step by step the kitchen, literally step by step, to find the money, and told me to take it for the extra watering. He said I opened the bag of cat food and dumped it all over his sink and left it open, so he had to throw away the $30 bag of cat food, which I had unrolled the cat food, poured a little bit into the thing to fill it back up, rolled it back up, and left it exactly where it was. He did not have to throw anything away. He said I wasn't supposed to feed the cats the dry food, even though he'd specifically told me several times to feed the cats the dry food. So it was just this really long, crazy, another manifesto type message in Rover. So I sent Rover a message saying, none of this is true. This is what truly happened. He freaked me out the whole time. I should have not done the job. Can you please remove the review? Rover said, no, they won't remove the review. They'll just watch him if he does anything to anybody else. How is that helpful? I don't know. I've been a good pet sitter for Rover for years and got the money from every one of my pet sitting jobs, but they would not even consider removing this review. So my Rover days were completely over because every time somebody went to Rover after that, they saw Rihanna as a nightmare. So they would send me a request, then obviously go read my reviews later, and then they would come back and say, oh, never mind, we don't want to use you, we're doing something else. So he ruined my Rover reputation. They wouldn't remove the review. I'm still freaked out about this guy. He's pretty scary. So I want to point out the red flags to you in this story, if you're still with me. I know it was a long story. One, he made me talk to him off of Rover, which I should never have done. He insisted I give him my personal numbers, which I should never have done. He insisted on paying me part of the money off of Rover. I don't know why, which I should have not have done. He asked me for services I don't provide, like watering, which I should not have done. When I first went into the house and I got a bad feeling and he showed me dozens of cameras, talked about me taking a shower in the place, made me sit really close to him, was concerned or weirded out by the fact that my husband came with me. All of these were huge red flags. I immediately should have not done this pet sitting visit. So I shouldn't even got to the point where he was sending me nasty, scary messages after the visit. So these are some points. When you do pet sitting, make sure you're on an app or something like that where somebody can oversee your communication, and don't communicate with them outside of the app. If you have your own, decide to set up your own pet sitting website or something like that, I would recommend you keep records of all of the communication if you have to contact the police or something like that. If you're weirded out when you first walk into the house, the guy or the person, whoever it is, completely weirds you out, this is a pet sitting job. It's not life or death. Don't do it, even if they ask you for or offer you extra money. So as you can see, I had a lot of red flags I did not see. This guy was super scary. I should not have done it. And Rover.com did not back me up. So I would not recommend using Rover.com anymore. I know I've recommended them a lot in the past, but if they're not going to back you up when you have a scary situation, then I would not recommend using them. So if you have any comments about this down below, if you've had a scary situation like that before with pet sitting or anything else, please feel free to share with us. If you want to hear more story times of other things that have happened in my life, I'm happy to share them. This is my first story time I've ever done on YouTube. And as usual, please like, comment, subscribe, do all the things, and I will talk to you in my next video.